What if gravity was just a myth? Imagine waking up one day and discovering that everything you thought you knew about the force holding us to the Earth was completely wrong. Suddenly, the laws of physics as we understand them are turned upside down. No more gravity pulling you down when you jump, no more weight keeping you grounded, and no more pesky things falling when you drop them. It's a crazy thought, right? But what if gravity was never real to begin with? What if everything we've been taught about this invisible force was simply an illusion? Let's explore this mind-bending scenario and see how the world would change if gravity was just a myth. To start, let's think about what would happen the moment gravity was revealed to be a myth. The immediate consequences would be nothing short of chaotic. People would start floating, objects would hover around, and the very concept of down would no longer make sense. Think about the way our daily lives are structured around the fact that gravity pulls everything down toward the ground. Without gravity, every single step you take would feel different. Walking? More like floating. Every time you jump, you might keep going up, drifting higher and higher, with no way to come back down unless you grab something to hold onto. Cities would suddenly have to rethink everything from architecture to transportation. Buildings wouldn't stay grounded, and roads would no longer be the place where cars drive. Instead, we'd be dealing with floating highways or hovercrafts zipping through the air. The very act of living on Earth would be fundamentally altered, and adjusting to this new reality would be mind-boggling, to say the least. Let's get into some of the specifics. If gravity was a myth, nothing would stay in place the way it does now. Your cup of coffee on the table? It would float away. Your car? Gone, floating up into the air. Food would literally float off your plate, and people would struggle to eat. Restaurants would need to invent a way to keep food from flying off the table or disappearing entirely. Public transportation would take on a whole new meaning. No more regular buses or trains. People would need to rely on systems designed to counter the lack of gravity. Think magnetic levitation or even futuristic floating platforms to keep us from drifting away. Life would no longer be about staying on the ground. It would be about figuring out how to navigate a world where up and down are no longer fixed concepts. What about the natural world? Without gravity, the oceans wouldn't stay in place either. Massive bodies of water would float off the surface, and the concept of tides as we know them would be completely different. Hurricanes and storms wouldn't be caused by the interaction of atmospheric pressure and gravity, and the weather systems we're used to would no longer function in the same way. Without gravity, our atmosphere might even start to drift away into space, leaving the Earth unable to support life as we know it. The planet itself would begin to break apart. The Earth's crust, unable to stay pressed together without gravitational pull, could fracture, leading to earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and massive changes to the surface of the planet. The oceans, the forests, and the very ground we walk on would become unstable, and survival would be incredibly challenging in this new, weightless world. Let's talk about how this would affect life in general. Plants, animals, and humans all rely on gravity in some way. For plants, gravity helps them know which way is up. Without gravity, their roots wouldn't grow downward and their stems wouldn't stretch upward. The result? Plants might float, unable to anchor themselves to the ground or get the nutrients they need from the soil. Animals and humans would also face significant challenges. Without gravity, our bodies wouldn't function in the same way. Human bones and muscles are designed to work against the pull of gravity, so without it, our bodies would become weaker and less able to perform basic functions. Over time, humans might even evolve differently to adapt to this new environment, perhaps growing lighter, with more delicate frames designed to float. The simple act of breathing could change, as our lungs rely on gravity to draw air in. We might need to find new ways to breathe without gravity pulling oxygen into our lungs. Now, let's consider the long-term consequences. If gravity was a myth and the planet didn't break apart, we'd have to come up with entirely new ways of organizing society. People would need to be tethered to structures to avoid floating away, and the idea of land would become a distant memory. Farming and agriculture? Those would be completely revolutionized, with food growing in floating gardens or specialized zero-gravity farms designed to keep plants rooted. Humans could even start exploring space with relative ease. No need for rockets to launch us off the ground. We could just float our way into the atmosphere, which could completely change the dynamics of space exploration. If the myth of gravity were somehow proven true, and our understanding of physics was completely redefined, the global scientific community would go into a frenzy. Research into new forces would explode as scientists scrambled to figure out how everything we thought we knew about the universe was completely wrong. The basic laws of physics would need to be rewritten, and a new wave of innovation would emerge to compensate for the absence of gravity. Perhaps new technologies could be developed to simulate gravity, creating artificial weight and pull in areas where it's necessary, such as in hospitals or sports training. The potential for new breakthroughs in physics would be limitless as humanity would look for ways to create a stable environment without the need for gravity. In terms of human behavior, the absence of gravity could fundamentally change the way we interact with the world. Sports, for instance, would be completely transformed. Imagine playing soccer or basketball in a world where nothing stays on the ground. New games would evolve, based on the zero-gravity principle, with people jumping, flying, and floating through the air. Sports would become less about speed and more about control of floating and maneuvering through the air. The concept of home would change. No longer could we live in homes that are fixed to the ground. People would need floating homes or shelters anchored by invisible forces. Architecture and interior design would become more focused on balance and stability in a world where gravity is no longer the constant force keeping everything in place. Culturally, society would need to adjust. The idea of feeling grounded would be redefined. Instead of referring to a stable, calm state of being, feeling grounded could be a literal term, referring to staying tethered to the earth, both physically and mentally. The sense of security that comes from being on solid ground would be gone, replaced by an ever-present uncertainty about where we are and how we relate to the world around us. Yet, there's also something exciting about the freedom that would come from living in a world without gravity. Imagine floating around, not bound by the laws of physics, able to explore spaces we never thought possible. It could feel like a world of endless possibility, but it would also be a constant challenge to adapt. In conclusion, if gravity was truly a myth, the world as we know it would be drastically different. Our understanding of the universe would shatter, and life itself would be restructured in unimaginable ways. While the absence of gravity would offer new opportunities, it would also come with incredible challenges, as we'd have to completely rethink how we live, how we move, and how we survive on this floating planet. The myth of gravity might seem far-fetched now, but if it were ever proven true, it would open up a world of possibilities and mysteries beyond anything we could have ever imagined. So, what do you think? How would you adapt to a gravity-less world? Would it be a blessing or a curse? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more what-if scenarios here at What If Factory. Until next time, keep questioning, keep imagining, and always ask, what if?